Hello, precious saints. It's been a while since I did a podcast. I have had a really difficult week, really struggled in a lot of areas. I had to deal with a lot of issues and really been struggling, probably with an onslaught from the enemy, but also just struggling against my own flesh, struggling to spend time with the Lord, struggling to get victory in areas where I should have had victory long ago, and really just feeling the pressure and what it says in the Word about the enemy wanting to wear out the saints. And I have every day been saying to God, you are my strength, you are my strength. It's not my own strength that will get me through this day. You are my strength. Today I want to share with you lessons from my garden. I just love that verse in Genesis 2 verse 8 where it says, the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Our Father is a gardener, and he so often speaks to me from my own garden, from creation, from the processes of plant growth and harvesting and sowing seed. And I just wanted to share two prophetic insights that I received in the last couple of weeks in my garden. Now, some time back, I did a series called The Pomegranate Bride. For those of you who are new to this channel, please do scroll down the main podcast page and listen to that series. You will find it a great blessing. So, for those who don't know, I have a pomegranate tree in a pot. And every year I nurture it, feed it, and generally cosset it in the hope that I will get a lovely crop of pomegranates. However, very often the violent winds we get here in the Western Cape tear off the blossoms of the pomegranate or the newly formed fruit before it has time to really grow to a size that can be harvested. And I always find it devastating. Last year I got one pomegranate. Although I had an abundance of flowers, they never came to anything. And the Lord spoke to me that year about the fact that there has to be a setting of fruit. And it's no good only having flowers, but we must bring forth fruit. But this year I said to the Lord, Father, I'm so tired of losing all my pomegranate in their infancy. How on earth do I get these pomegranates to stay on the tree and grow to full ripeness and maturity? And he said to me this, water abundantly every single day. So, since he told me that, which is about 6 weeks ago, I have been watering that pomegranate in this giant pot every single day. And as usual, it brought forth an abundance of flowers. And then the fruit began to set. And I got these tiny little pomegranates. And I just thought, oh no, the windy season is coming. I wonder how many will be left. But I continued to be obedient and water my pomegranate tree. And do you know what? I have an abundance of medium-sized pomegranates growing to full maturity. This year, very few fruit dropped to the ground, even though the stormy winds shook that tree violently. It seemed that the copious watering made the difference, daily copious watering. And then the Lord said to me, my bride is a pomegranate tree. And he referred me to Song of Songs, where she speaks of giving her bridegroom the juice of her pomegranates. And he said, my bride in this season of stormy winds must drink copiously daily of the water of the word. Drink of the river of the water of life that flows from my word, quickened by my spirit. And then even though The stormy winds may blow and shake you. You will not drop your fruit. You will bring forth much fruit for the kingdom. So that was really a good lesson for me, because in previous years I had watered that tree probably 3 times a week, 3 or 4 times a week, and probably not very deeply. But since I obeyed that instruction, it has been amazing, the difference in the resilience of the tree and the strength of the little stalk that holds the pomegranates onto the branch. They are much stronger and they keep holding firm even in the shaking. And as we are entering a time of very great shaking, I want to encourage you, Bride of Christ, to really discipline yourself to drink large quantities of the water, of the Word, quickened and opened up to you by the Spirit. You know, in the natural, we have to drink a certain amount of water daily for our earthen vessels to remain hydrated and healthy. And dehydration causes a number of physical symptoms and can even lead to death if it's long-term dehydration. And a human body cannot go without water for more than 3 days. So in the spiritual, that principle applies, but it's no good just drinking a thimbleful of the water of the Word. It's no good just reading 1 verse a day and rushing out into your life. We have to saturate our spirits in the water of the Word, quickened and opened up and revealed to us by the Spirit. And we will bear much fruit, and our leaf will not wither, because we're planted by the rivers of the waters of life. So, in conjunction with that, and struggling this week, really with my flesh, my friend had a dream that she stepped out into knee-deep mud, and I was in that dream, and it was very difficult to walk. And then in another section of the dream, there was a beautiful white mulberry tree that we could eat of, and it had complete nourishment and was very nutritious. And this morning, as I sat to prepare for this podcast, the Lord said to me, remember, the word Philistine comes from a root word meaning to roll in the dust. So the dust of the earth was used to make Adam's flesh. And so dust and earth and mud are prophetic pictures of the flesh. And as my friend in the dream stepped out into knee-deep mud, it speaks of being immersed in situations where there are great manifestations of the flesh, and it's very difficult to keep walking forward in the Spirit. So we wondered what was going on with the mulberry tree in her dream. And then the Lord gave us this verse. It's in Psalm 84. It says, blessed is the man whose strength is in you, from verse 5, in whose hearts are the highways to Zion, who passing through the valley of weeping make it a place of springs, and the early rain also fills the pools. The valley of weeping is the valley of Baca. And I have really felt in these last couple of weeks that this is the place I have been passing through. There have been a lot of emotional issues I've had to face, a lot of turmoil, weeping in my family, just a lot of struggle and pressure. And as I said to you, I've been saying, Lord, you are my strength. Psalm 84 verse 5 says, blessed is the man whose strength is in you, in whose heart are the highways to Zion. And because that man's strength is in God, they pass through the valley of weeping, or the valley of Bacha. So one of the things one of my friends said to me is, this too will pass. We're passing through the valley of weeping. It's not a place of permanent dwelling. But not only do we pass through it, we make it a place of springs. Or the King James Version says, make it a well. Now, I got to thinking about this thing of making the valley of weeping a place of springs. And I thought to myself, when you dig a well, you dig down, the soil is dry on the top. But as you dig deeper and deeper and deeper in this hard place, in this valley of weeping, you're digging down deep to find living water. You're going to, as you get close to the spring, you're going to encounter mud, because the spring deep underneath is making the dust of the earth wet. So you're digging and digging, and then you encounter an area of mud, which makes it difficult to dig. But when you encounter the mud, you know that it's a sign that there's a living spring underneath. When you encounter manifestations of the flesh and you step out into knee-deep mud and going forward is really difficult, know that deep underneath there is a spring of living water. You just have to keep digging deep. You don't stop and sit down and weep. You keep digging deep into God. You dig deep into the Word until you get past the area of mud and you find the source of living water. And as you move the mud out of the way and clear the source of the spring, you open up a gusher and a fountain of the water of life. And once you shore that up, other travelers who pass that way will not encounter dry earth in the valley of weeping. They will encounter a spring that has already been prepared by your digging deep and being prepared to dig through and wade past the muddy area that gives you a sign that there's living water underneath. And you have done the hard work, spiritually speaking, to clear the way for others to find a place of refreshing as they too pass through the valley of weeping at a later time. Then the Lord reminded me also of the fact that in Genesis 26:15, Isaac found that the wells dug in the days of Abraham had been stopped up and filled with earth by the Philistines. In other words, there are ancient wells of living water from our forefathers in the faith who also passed through the valley of weeping. But the Philistines, the manifestation of the flesh and the rolling in the dust, stopped and blocked those wells and filled them with earth, so that weary travelers passing through that way did not even know that there was living water available to drink in that place. And Isaac dug again the wells of his father Abraham. He cleared out the mud that the Philistines had thrown in there, and he released the living water to flow again. So this morning as I sat with the Lord, and I said, Lord, why am I struggling so much with the flesh in this week, around me and in me and everything? He said, you have not guarded your gates, and the Philistines have crept in. And I knew in a flash that this was true. I had not been careful about what I allowed my eyes to see or my ears to hear, and it had allowed a manifestation of the flesh and knee-deep mud to manifest around me and also in me. And so I repented for not guarding my gates, asked for a cleansing of my gates, broke bread, and asked the Lord to help me dig through the mud, knowing that there is a spring and a fountain of living water underneath what I have been wading through this week. So I pray that that has helped you. I don't know what you've faced this week, whether you've also had a difficult week, but know this, that blessed is the man whose strength is in him, in whose hearts are the highways to Zion. Passing through the valley of weeping, they make it a place of springs. They go from strength to strength till each of them appears before God in Zion. That pomegranate tree needed daily living water, copious water. Dig past the mud that the Philistines have filled your fountains of living water with, and release the springs to flow freely in your life once again. The word for weeping is baka. In Hebrew it's H1056. And I discovered that the word for mulberry trees is H1057, which is the same word as 1056, baka. In 2 Samuel 5, verse 24, it says, "Let it be when you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the mulberry trees, then you must stir yourself, for then will the Lord go out before you and smite the host of the Philistines." God is going to go before us to smite the host of the Philistines, to deal with the incredible manifestation of the flesh in all its forms that we're seeing in the earth today, and also the manifestation of the flesh that is warring against the spirit in our own lives. And it's connected to angelic activity in the tops of the mulberry trees. Remember in my friend's dream, we were eating of the white mulberry tree that was like the tree of life. The tree of life is planted by the rivers of the water of life. And as we drink copiously of the river of the water of life that flows from the throne, as the Spirit of truth opens up the word of truth to us, the Lord will go before us and smite and destroy the host of the Philistines that is coming against us. This is a war of the flesh against the spirit, the war of the sons of Zion against the sons of Greece, and God will give us the victory. But our strength is found in the river of the water of life, in preparation for the battles ahead. The other lesson from my garden that I wanted to share with you is concerning my purple heritage poppies that come up every year in my garden. They are the most beautiful poppies, a deep, rich purple color with big yellow stamens in the center, and they grow very tall. Every year I harvest the seed and re-sow it, and then every year these beautiful poppies come up all over my garden and even in amongst my vegetables and put out their glorious purple garments. And last year there were quite a few purple poppies, and I always leave the plants until the pods have formed and the wind has sown the seed, or I collect the seed, share it with friends and sow it again myself. But I noticed this year very few purple poppies came up. I had a multitude of the normal red poppies, the Flanders poppies, but there were very few purple poppies, just here and there in my vegetable garden, not even in my front flower garden. And whenever those purple poppies come up every year, the Spirit always speaks to me about purple being the color of royalty, a garment and a mantle that bears the authority of kingly authority. And he speaks to me about the Melchizedek priesthood, about Esther receiving her crown, and the authority that comes to the bride as she becomes one with the bridegroom. But this year, as I watched my few purple poppies flower and then drop their beautiful petals, and those pods formed, the Lord prompted me to go and cut off all the pods and collect the seed. And this year he didn't speak to me about the garment of authority and the royal garments and Joshua the high priest receiving his garments of state. He said nothing to me when the poppies were flowering this year. But when I went to pick those poppy pods, and I put them in a bowl and I looked at them, the Lord said to me, "What do they look like?" And I said, "Lord, they just look exactly like crowns." He said, "Yes. The crowns of the past season must fall to the ground and die. The mantle of the last season must fall to the ground. I have different mantles for my bride in the new season." And as I looked at those beautifully shaped crown pods with their millions of little seed, I remembered what Jesus said about a grain of wheat falling to the ground and dying in order to bring forth a rich harvest. And what I wanted to say to you is that I hear the Spirit saying the next season is going to be very different to the last season. You cannot carry the mantle of a last season over into the new season. Those purple petals have shone gloriously and beautifully royal in this past season, but they have fallen. And that season is over. And the crowns of the last season cannot be carried into the next season. There is no anointing on that crown for the next season. There is not grace for that mantle and that crown for the season that you are entering. That crown and that mantle must fall to the ground and die. All those tiny little black poppy seeds were gathered. I didn't sow them this year. I gathered them and put them into a pouch. And I really felt that the Lord was saying that my bride does not understand the extent of the difference of this next season. The past season's garments and the past season's mantles will not equip her for what is ahead. She has to lay them down. She has to let them go in order for there to be a harvest in the next season. Then another precious sister in the Lord phoned me and shared with me something from Luke chapter 5, and I knew that it was connected to this whole message the Spirit was giving me about the mantles of a past season, or the garments of a past season. She gave me Luke 5 verse 36. "And he spoke also a parable to them. No man puts a piece of a new garment upon an old garment. Otherwise both the new will tear, and the piece that was taken out of the new agrees not with the old." That's what the King James says. The Amplified Bible says, "No one puts a patch from a new garment on an old garment. If he does, he will tear the new one, and the patch from the new one will not match the old one." Now that's very interesting, because the Lord had been speaking to me about garments of a past season not being fit for the new season, and that he has a new garment. Remember, the Hebrew word for wife, or the Hebrew word for garment, also means wife. So we, in essence, are the piece of a new garment, the piece of the garment or the wife of the Lamb. And God is saying that He's not going to put you, a piece of the garment for the next season, into an old garment. You don't fit. And if you are trying to remain in the old season and keep the old mantle and try to fit into what has been in a past season, there's going to be no agreement. There's going to be a tearing, a splitting and a severing. That word, the new piece, does not agree with the old. That word agree is symphoneo. It means to be harmonious, to agree together. And the root of that is G4859, which means to sound together or to sound in union. Beloved, the old sound, the sound of the old season, is not the sound of the new season. And God has been changing you. God has been working within you to make you part of the new garment. And the reason why you feel like you don't fit in where you are now is because there is no agreement in you with the old environment and the old garment. He has made you part of the new garment, part of His appointed group of saints, which is His new garment, His wife for the new season. And there is no union or harmony of sound between your vessel and the old situation. And when there is not harmony, there is discordance. You will find that you're irritable. You will find that things get to you, that you just feel like you're out of place, like a piece of a puzzle that is trying to be forced into a place in a puzzle that you're not a part of anymore. That is a sign to you that God has got you ready and shaped you and formed you in such a way that the sound coming from you is in harmony with the season that is ahead. And understand that He's done that because you are part of a new wineskin that He wants to put the new wine in. Remember, if He tries to pour the wine, the new wine, into an old wineskin, Luke 5:37, the old wineskin will burst and break. What He's done in the past season cannot hold what He's going to pour out in the next season. And you are a piece of the new garment. You are a piece of the new wineskin, made ready and fit for the Master's use for the next season. The sound that comes from you is the sound of the new season. And that is why you're feeling so out of harmony with your surroundings at this time. The garment of an old season has fallen to the ground. The crowns of an old season are not the crowns for the new season. Understand that God is moving you from one season to another. You're in a time of transition, and you will feel like you do not fit in because you do not agree with the old. There is no symphoneo, there is no harmony and union of sound between you and what God has worked in you and the place that He's moving you out of. So I really pray that has been a blessing to you. I thank the Lord of hosts that every joint supplies and that we all see in part, and on these occasions the Lord has given me parts of the picture, and He used precious sisters in the Lord that I am in spiritual relationship with to give me other parts of the picture so that I can deliver something to the remnant that I pray would be a great blessing, that would strengthen you and impart nourishment to you dig past the mud and the manifestations of the flesh, clear out the old wells, and let the fountains of living water spring up within you. And let God move you and plant you and make you part of what He's doing in this next season. Shalom.